And there we go. Up and running. Tuesday. Little midday post-lunch stream here. Let's see what we can get. Let's get some background music pumping so I don't have dead air behind me, because I know how bad that sounds. There we go. Can't do anything better but classic rock. How is everyone doing out there? Whether watching live or after the fact in the future, how we doing? How we doing? Get a couple things brewing quickly. We'll hop right into it. We got to switch back and forth between different streaming thingies. I don't know what you call them. Services, whatever. Streaming service, that's more like Netflix, Hulu, fucking stupid ESPN. But I gotta say, try to figure out what to do, how to do it, slowly but surely. But yes, we've got more to talk about as it pertains to the UFC betting scandal. Not only is Isaac Dolgarian coming under fire, but there's also other fighters now coming out speaking about this. Lando Venata, Vincent Morales, Vanessa Demopoulos, and they've all seemingly retracted their statements. They posted these and then subsequently deleted them not too long after. So the question is, was it a joke or was it serious? I tend to lean towards these guys being 100% serious. And, of course, no offense to them. No offense to them. I respect them. I've enjoyed Lando Venata very much. Vincent Morales, so. Vanessa Demopoulos, I guess she's had her fun moments in the UFC. But aside from that, they are maybe not the brightest bulbs. Maybe not. Productions, what's up, man? What's going on? Yeah, I don't know. A lot of fixed fights. We're going to get into that in just a second, but these are not the sharpest tools in the shed. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are not the brightest and best that we have in terms of the intellectual department. If you see shit going down like this and you've been asked about this stuff, do not talk about this unless somebody comes to you asking questions. I'm afraid these people saying this stuff are beyond stupid. Beyond stupid. If you're going to fix it fight, at least make it look legit. If we're talking about the Dolgarian thing, yeah, I mean, he tried to make it look legit, but it's very odd that a fantastic grappling prospect, phenom, dude is finishing everybody in the first round, 10-8'd Christian Rodriguez, who's a motherfucker in and of himself. And then you go out there, shoot a takedown like that and fumble it. Very suspicious looking. But these guys, the fight looked fake as fuck. Look, listen, you can get caught in a submission here and there, but he didn't just get caught in a submission. He stuck his head out right for him to take. He wanted it to be taken. Why would you want to get knocked out when you could just get choked out? So Lando Venata said some things, right? Last night, spoke about how he's been approached 7 times, and then he posted afterwards. To be clear, I've never been approached about throwing a fight, nor anyone I know, because I'm not a hoe and would never disrespect the martial arts for money. Just because you wouldn't disrespect the martial arts for money doesn't mean that people can't approach you to throw a fight. Are you stupid? You really think you're joking here? You think you're fooling anybody? No. Lando Venata, Vincent Morales, Vanessa Demopoulos, unfortunately, are very, very stupid. Did I see his interview with MMA Junkie earlier in the week when he's saying he deserves a cut out of all the bets? Oh, yeah, Productions. Oh, yes. We can pull that up right away if I can find it. Should be right here. We can take a listen back to this one. I mean, it's just, I keep listening to it every day. I have this playing on repeat. Ridiculous.
Hey, I said don't bet on me unless you're paying me some percentage. I'm doing all the work. That's how I feel about it. You know what I mean? Like I work my ass off every day. You know, I'm trying to support a family with this, and I think they should put a like some type of clause, like 3 or 5% of what you make goes to the fighter. You know, so that's how I think they should do it because we're the ones putting our lives on the line. We're the ones, you know, sacrificing everything, training all day long, losing a social life, all that type of stuff. So yeah, if you're betting on me, I want some of it.
This dude's fucking stupid. And the way that his voice, to me, and again, I'm not some body language and some, you know, I don't know, psychologist or whatever you want to read this as, however you would read this as a professional. The way that his voice drops in tone and becomes much softer at the end there signifies a level of like, I've got a little bit of trepidation here, a little bit of a lack of confidence in what I just said. Did I just fuck up by saying all that? All he's thinking about is the money. Right. Now, again, maybe Yadier Devalle is that good and they're throwing this and pinning it on Isaac Dolgari. And it's entirely possible. But when you say shit like that the week of the fight, after we already know that these guys can't bet on themselves, their families can't bet on them, their training partners, coaches cannot bet on them, according to the UFC rules, you just come across as an absolute turd and an idiot. You've outed yourself. I don't have to do anything but play that video over and over again, and people go, okay, now that makes a lot of sense. You're not very smart if your job is to get the shit beat out of you every day. Now, to be fair, some of these fighters are pretty intellectual. Michael Chiesa, not one of them, in my opinion, but he has made a fair assessment of what happened. Not all these fighters are that stupid, but a lot of them are not very intellectual. Vince Morales. All this throwing the fight stuff is crazy. I've been approached about doing it, and it's not something I could live with, even though I ended up losing the damn fight anyways. How much were you offered? Pennies, considering how big of a deal it is. $70,000. So, these fighters, and I don't know how much money Vincent Morales is making, maybe, or at least I know, probably higher than 30 and 30. He's not making a base level contract of 10 and 10 or 12 and 12. He's been in the UFC for a number of fights. He's not making 20 and 20 anymore. I don't really know exactly what he's making. Maybe upwards of 40 to show, 40 to win. It just makes you wonder how many fights have been fixed, because a lot of fights look real to me in the UFC. Right. They do look real. We can get into that in a second. But do you really think that whoever's trying to fix fights, whoever these mystery people are, these probably mafia higher-ups coming to these guys, wherever they're training, California, Colorado, Las Vegas, you think they really came and offered this guy $70,000 straight off the bat? And I also question how in a lot of Vince's fights, they go to a fairly lackluster decision. There's not a lot of finishes on this guy's career, on the guy's record. Excuse me. So they came to you with a level of money. You said no, or maybe you said that you were so-so on it. They come back with another offer. They come back with a third offer, maybe a fourth, maybe a fifth, and then they come to you with $70,000. This is a negotiation. How do we know that that's not going on? How do we know that's not going on? How do we know that this was the first offer? I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. Now, it's possible, but if you're running a business, if you're the mafia, the mob, whatever, you're not just going to go for the highest number you possibly can. That's life-changing money for a lot of these prelim fighters. They're not getting paid anything. Right, it is. But the point is, they aren't making a lot of money. So who's to say that 70 wasn't the third or fourth offer down the line? And Vince has actually had conversations. This is my whole point here. These fighters posting this stuff, saying almost proudly that, yeah, let's fuck over the UFC, man. This happened to me too. Well, you're just implicating yourself in a potential investigation. You don't want to put yourself in the ledger. Of course, there's this funny picture down here in the corner of Cash Patel. You want this motherfucker coming looking down your books? You want him looking at all your text messages, everything you've ever said online? No. Keep yourself out of it until somebody comes to you with questions. I'm sure there's some kind of a link between this person, that person, and this person. Even through paper trail and conversations and who knows who, They might still get to Vincent Morales. They might still get to Vanessa Demopoulos. They might still get to Lando Venata. Goofy. An MMA fighter is not very smart. Wow, shocker. Again, production. There are some smart ones. There's some decent ones. There's some funny ones. But for the most part, they're just not the highest caliber of individuals. Now, I don't view myself as a very intellectual person. I see what I see. I read it for what it is. I take it all in. I try to figure out what's fact, what's fiction, what makes sense. The conspiracy theories, I think about it from every single possible angle, right? Ryan Hall sounds pretty smart when he talks. Right. Ryan Hall, for example, good one. Pretty smart guy. Anthony Smith, not the, sharpest tool in the shed when it comes to, like, fighting, but he seems like he can talk okay. I don't find him highly intellectual, but he's a decent talker. Chael Sonnen, if you can speak like that, doesn't mean that you're smart like school smarts, but he can talk, so he's got some level of intelligence. But it's getting pretty freaking wild. Getting pretty crazy. Getting pretty darn crazy. What else we got going on? So, it wasn't just that one either. Let me find the Vanessa Demopoulos one. Let me find the Lando Venata one so we can zoom in on it. Anthony Smith seems like a clean-cut analyst. He's just very delusional. Yes, predictions 100% agree. You're right. So what do you think is going to be the outcome of all this? And let's say a month from now. A month from now? Absolutely nothing. Zero. Nothing's going to happen in a month. Maybe these three fighters that have come out and said stuff, Venata, Demopoulos, Morales, maybe they will be cut because I feel like the UFC is trying to cut ties and remove themselves from this because, of course, they want to shift all the blame away. Capitan Ralph Fuccio, what's up, my brother? Thank you for being here. Do you think it will be a long process? Hell yeah. They still haven't finished the James Krause thing. It's been 3 years. That's not over. They're still investigating that. That's still an ongoing process there. We still don't know exactly. So it's going to be a long time. But what will the UFC do? What are they in control of? Another thing I want to throw out there to you, productions, because you're here. Ralph Fuccio, maybe still hanging around. Or anybody else watching this after the fact. This all seems so convenient to me. Like, my initial reaction is that Isaac Dolgaren's an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And then you see that he's got ties to James Krause, and you go, well, what does that have to do with anything? Maybe nothing, but it's weird that he's got ties to him. And then information starts coming out about how there's 2 fights on the card that were getting looked into by the FBI. 2 fights on one card. And you ask yourself, okay, so there was a bad decision in the Norma Dumont fight and the Ketlin Vieira one earlier in the night. Maybe the Dolgarian one was to shift some attention from that. Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe it's the Waldo Cortez Acosta fight between him and Ante Delia. There's an eye poke. They need that fight to go over a certain time limit in the round, hit the prop bet or whatever, the over half a round. They're heavyweights looking for they want a knockout or something instead of a TKO. I don't know how the betting works exactly, but why did they restart that fight? They shouldn't have been able to restart the fight. Again, thankfully, I guess in the case of Waldo, they did. He got his justice served in the moment, but according to the rules, they're not allowed to restart that fight. So you wonder, was it that one? Was it the bad decision? Or was it the main event in which David Onama basically laid over and got run the fuck over by Steve Garcia? Because guess who's got ties to James Krause? David Onama. I mean, are you kidding me? It's just something about this seems so bizarre to me. And anybody out there listening, let me know if you guys are into the betting stuff. These leagues are so ingrained. These books, these like betting sports books, right? They're so ingrained in the fiber of sports now, in the leagues themselves. The NFL, the MLB, the NBA, the UFC. DraftKings is one of their biggest sponsors. Who's to say that they're trying to do something shady on another card somewhere else with more money on the line? And they see Isaac Dolgaren and his ties to James Krause. They know that something has happened with Isaac Dolgaren. Maybe somebody has approached him. Maybe not. Maybe somebody approached Derek Minner 3 years ago. And they're tying this all back to James Krause because of the insider trading and the offshore betting stuff that he was doing there. And they try to frame this guy using some kind of crazy manipulation. We go all the way back in time. And again, this is just me being a conspiracy theorist, being crazy a little bit. And I'm reaching, but I just wonder with the pervasiveness of the sports betting, how deep does it go? How far back does it go? Because if we're involving these potential shady figures that are coming up to these people and asking them to throw fights, multiple fighters, who are they? Where do they come from? It's probably not just some random dude or some rich dude, because why does he need more money like that? He's already rich, blah, 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 blah. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just some stupid bettor who's got a lot of money. It's probably someone who's willing to commit crimes, right? Because this is a criminal offense. You could be put in jail for doing this, for throwing fights, doing these things. So mafia, mob ties, right? Dana White, the history that he has up in Boston, had to escape Boston. The mob, the mafia, whatever's going on up there. Again, I'm not well read on this, but it's stuff that is in and around the ether of MMA. Dana White escapes the mob or the mafia, goes to Las Vegas, sets up this thing. Maybe he still owed money to the mafia, the mob. Maybe they put up a lot of money to help him do this and that. How deep does this fucking go? Because these sports books are in the entire thing. They are in on the whole thing. It's always up on the screen. What the fuck is going on here? What is going on? How deep does this go? Is the UFC sending out some shadow agent, some third party to ask these people to throw fights, to try to get them in trouble, to try to cover their own ass? Half the fan base is saying in this entire story that this is just trying to make the UFC look bad. Oh, this is all for the fighters. Like, I don't know what to think. There could be anything going on here. Anything. All of these MMA media outlets, Ariel Helwani, Luke Thomas, all these guys that are going to be talking about this, they're also sponsored by sports books. They're also sponsored by sports books. So how am I supposed to know what's going on here? How does anybody really know what's going on here? Who's behind all this? How deep does it go? It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense when you take a step back. When you go on the inside, when you're looking at all the information presented to you, it all just fits too perfectly. If there's two fights on one card and both of them are tied back to this guy, James Krause, who was involved in this other betting scandal, it just fits too perfect. It's just too perfect. It doesn't make any sense when you step away. How the fuck does that happen? Anyway, that's just me ranting. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe that's why I'm getting fooled by all this shit. But when I see Vanessa Demopoulos saying, yeah, people have approached me to throw fights also, my integrity could never. We spent our lives learning skills and honoring the sport. Can't believe people compromise their morals like this. You can't even spell morals right. Why are you opening your mouth? Why are you saying anything? This is stupid. Lando, fair. I was approached 7 times to throw a fight. My record reflects my integrity. What the fuck about this is so funny, buddy? Because now after the fact, he's like, oh, it's this. I was just a joke. Just a joke. Just a joke. No. What is funny about that? It could be funny. Very convenient. The entire thing to me is just very, very convenient. It all just fits too perfectly into place. It's multiple fighters linked back to James Krause. Onama looked rigged. Obama. Nah, I got you. I don't know. I mean, I do think that Steve Garcia is that good. I don't want to think that. I want to think Yadier Devalle is that good. David Onama looked like he was ready for a sparring session. The Bulgarian one, because he's so good in the first round, was just very odd. Steve Garcia has blitzed through people like that before. It looks like all the judges and referees are betting on fights, and they're using their power to control the outcome of fights. Productions, we'll get into it right now. I got to go to find what I need real quick, but I'll pull up all the stuff that I've seen so far. It's not everything, and I'm sure you've seen a number of these comments as well. But we'll get in on it. So 2 more fights which had suspicious line movement may have been among those flagged by the FBI. Pantoja versus Asakura and Yaya versus Nguyen. Of course, Jason Herzog catches some heat online for this one. Productions doesn't bet on sports at all personally. I don't either. I think I've placed 1 bet just because they gave me $35 or I got a coupon or something. it was what it was. But this line movement in the Pantoja versus Asakura, Pantoja probably to win here, minus 245, and then the line jumps up right before 8:05 p.m. I don't know if this is Eastern Standard Time or not, but in like East Coast time, the pay-per-view starts at 10 o'clock. So it's a bit wild that it's got that massive of a jump. We take a look at the Muhammad Yahya, Steve Nguyen fight. Over 1.5 rounds. This guy got knocked down 12 fucking times. This guy got nearly flatlined a number of times. 12 times? 6 times? Basically got put out on the feet. Basically got knocked out on the ground. And Jason Herzog's just standing over him like, get up, buddy. Get up, buddy. Over 1.5 rounds. What the fuck is that? Look at it. Starts here, goes up a little bit over the course of a couple of days. That's how the betting works. That's how the lines move. Up, down, back up again, and then boom! Just drops off a cliff moments before the fight, hours before the fight, because if you take these chunks as a day, there's only a few hour window in which that happens. Only a few hours. It's very suspicious. The reasons the fighters are saying that they've been offered fights and turning them down is to make them look good to the UFC so they didn't fix anything in the fight. That's why they're doing it. Yes, that's a good point. I think I agree with you. That's probably why they're doing it. Like, hey, guys, here's all, they're trying to be as transparent as possible. The problem is it then calls into question everything that they've done, because now the FBI, whoever's investigating this, is going to put a halt on those fighters first. They're going to go, hold on, you guys can't fight for 6 months or a year or 3 years because we need to look into it. You might not have even done anything wrong, but we need to look into this. So we can't have you fighting because now you've said that you've been in contact with somebody that has asked you to throw a fight. Even if they bring forward evidence that it's this exact person who did it, they still need to be investigated. This shit moves slowly because they have to get the facts correct. They have to. Somebody else, Devi Simu MMA, says that the stoppage between Jared Cannonier and Nasruddin Imavov was weird. That one guy said they're looking to audit Jason Herzog's fights, and he wrapped that fight with Muhammad Yahya. Listen, Harry Mack, Ariel Helwani's touting this guy, saying that it's all legit. I feel like maybe he just knows one of Ariel's contacts or whatever. Whoever this person is that's letting this out there. This guy seems very odd. I appreciate what he's doing. It seems like it's mostly legit. I think if Ariel gives his stamp of approval, then it's mostly legit. He doesn't really put out stuff there into the ether, an official report, unless it's legit. Ariel does have opinion pieces, which I disagree with, and I think he does a little bit of shady, snaky stuff. But if he's putting out an official statement on something, it's going to be legit. He's a well-trained journalist. I got to give him credit where it's due. But this Harry Mack guy, I don't like this fucking ego. These ego motherfuckers. Go look at my Twitter. I recently had a little back and forth with somebody who I actually was praising in a couple of my fucking videos. This dumbass. Magic MMA bets. What a fucking weirdo, bro. Like, this is great. This is a great summary of the entire thing, and I shouted him out. It was in my video. Like, very apt assessment. I really enjoyed it. He posted something shitting on this Harry Mack guy, and again, I got no problem with shitting on this Harry Mack guy. I really don't know who's being truthful, where they're getting their information. I trust Ariel as it comes to official statements. I liked what this Magic guy was saying, but then he's saying that this Harry Mack guy is a fucking idiot, and I asked him, well, what's your opinion on all this, man? Because you just keep spouting off a bunch of this, like, bombastic shit. These guys just talk back and forth. These fucking betting bros. These fucking, I don't know what they are, fucking alpha male. I don't know what the fuck they are, man. But I ask a question, and he just, fucking asshole, bro. I don't get it. I'm not calling him out. I appreciate the stuff that he's been doing. I need the second opinion, and I'm trying to ask a question, then he can't even answer my question. Like, I'm just trying to figure this shit out because I'm not into betting, and these guys seem to be really into betting. Okay, we got another one. So Blood MMA, and again, I don't really know a lot of these people. I don't really know them. I posted this 2 years ago. This is probably the craziest thing I've ever seen go on with the judging inside the cage. This was right in our face. We always complained for 2 days and moved on to the next card. The sport has dirty refs, judges, and even some fighters. Excuse me. Tape study is always fun. They say there is no corruption. Only conspiracy theories about MMA judges and commission. This has to be one of the craziest things I've seen in the sport. 2 minutes of one guy changing all the scores by himself. I actually had Gomez Juarez winning 2 and 3, but it was close. This is just wild to do right in front of people on live TV. Please retweet this so everybody can see this crap. And of course, I can't play it because it's an official broadcast, but they're about to read the decision. The referee's holding their hands. He's literally holding their hands. Literally holding their hands. And again, there can be mistakes, and maybe Bruce Buffer couldn't understand the handwriting. Of course, it's possible. But I mean, what exactly is going on here? Now, it doesn't look like he's doing anything about changing the final score for Bruce Buffer to read. The ladies, they don't know what's going on. And that's the point, too, is like, it might not just be the fighters. That's my point. What's going on here? What does everybody have to gain? Everybody who's involved in this, who has what to gain from what? The sports books, what do they have to gain from doing this or being involved in it? What does the UFC have to do and be involved in this? What do they gain from this? What does the FBI have to do with this? We've got Cash Patel fairly tightly knit with the UFC and everybody involved. If they're not going to investigate this, some questions may arise. Some questions may arise. If you want to understand behavior, you have to understand the incentive. There's a shitload of money for all these broke people to be made in the sports by rigging fights. Kind of my point here. Who has what to gain from this? Terry Rozier signed a $100+ million contract over the course of multiple years. This guy is a millionaire, multimillionaire, has generational wealth. What the fuck has he got any room to be making mistakes like trying to throw games, trying to shift his stats? What does he have to do with that unless he has some kind of damning evidence against him? Somebody's holding something over his head. Anybody can be gotten to. The less money you make, the more susceptible you are to getting found by one of these shady figures. Anybody can be gotten to, though. Don't rule out anybody. Don't rule out main card fights. Don't rule out main events. Because this is the type of shit with Isaac Dolgarian, some random fighter on the undercard who hasn't fought in a while, who's got a new kid, who needs to pay his bills. Somebody came to him, and then that's going to distract from the main event, which is going to be slightly less suspicious. You know? I don't know. I don't know what to think. But if you make, the less money you make, the more susceptible you are to getting and having the interest of these third parties. Benny P. If I was to think of any fight was a dive, it would have to be Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green. 2-1-1 in his last 14 fights, and somehow that one loss was a 33-second flatline KO to a 37-year-old Bobby Green who isn't known for his KO power. Bobby Green, of course, on the left. Bit of a boxer. One stiff straight punch. Right to the chin. He definitely falls on the ground, but he's not limp. He's not out cold. Turns over. Who knows? I do like Benny P as well. Well, the human chin is also weird. Exactly, productions. Like, now that's the fucking problem. This now calls in everything. Everything is called into question here. Every single fight ever is called into question. That's the fucking problem. Every single fight that has happened over the past couple of years is going to be looked into. Everybody's calling for every fight. That was weird. This was weird. Hamzat Chimaev over DDP. Why was he allowed to sit in the crucifix and do no damage for minutes at a time without a stand-up? Why was Muhammad Yahya able to take 12 knockdowns and get the absolute shit beat out of him? How was that able to happen? Well, Jason Herzog wanted it to go over 1.5 rounds. I'm more concerned about the Isaac fight. That shit was ragged, bro. Grant totally could have just got knocked out. Yes, I agree. It's hard to tell with the punches, with the strikes, but with the submissions, some of the shady grappling, Anthony Smith versus Vitor Petrino Productions. Tell me if I'm wrong on that one. That one, I believe, that one comes to the forefront of my mind. Question everything. Question everything and everybody. That's my point. That's the entire thing. FBI audits Herzog fights. If that's true, we got some real shit to discuss. Because that Muhammad Yahya one is weird. Okay, Jillian DeCourcy. Maybe you're familiar with her. Maybe you're not. Seen a couple of her fights. I'm not casting aspirations at anybody, but I don't know any facts. I just know what most of y'all know. But the thought of people throwing and fixing fights bothers me. Our sport is still in its infancy. And again, this is probably why we're able to have this happen. Jillian DeCourcy's been around for a while, over 100 Herzog fights. I'm not sure if it's Herzog fights. I'm not even sure if that number is legit. Again, Harry Mack, a little shifty, a little shady, but it seems to be true. And by Ariel's reporting, seems to be in line with things. I can't watch women's MMA. I'm with you. But we'll continue. I like her perspective on it. Doesn't really matter what she does as a fighter, but I like the perspective. Our sport is still in its infancy. That's why they can get to these fighters early and often. They don't get paid enough, but you also can't go paying these fighters $1 million because as we've already talked about, not very smart people. Not very smart people for the most part. It's still searching for someone's credibility. What it doesn't need is people hurting its credibility. I just love everything about this sport. I've given years of my life to it because of that love. Years of pain and injury. I love the hard training. I love the grueling fight camps and being pushed to the mental and physical exhaustion. I love the 15 or 25 minutes of giving everything you have just so you can achieve 5 seconds of having your hand raised. I love the friendships I've made from it. I love the veterans who gave me advice when I was starting out. And I love being able to now give advice to young fighters starting out. In its purest form, this sport is violently beautiful. I hate the idea of people within the sport being the ones to hurt the credibility of the sport. The fighters, the people within the sport, and the fans, the sport deserve better than that. The people who love the same thing I love deserve better than that. I think that's beautifully stated by her. Fight Oracle here. I saved this because it's pretty much my exact initial thought on the whole thing. I like some. I'm excited for Zhang, Wei Li, though, and Valentina. Yes, specific women's fights, I'll get hyped for. And last week we had a good scrap on the prelims between, I don't even remember, Conejo and Alice Ardeline, I believe. That was a good scrap, but I wasn't expecting anything from it. I was on my phone for the first 3 minutes, and then I saw it, and I was like, oh, this is getting pretty good. But yeah, Amanda Nunes and Kayla Harrison I'm interested in. Zhang Wei Li. Obviously, Shevchenko. If Ronda comes back just for the spectacle of it, because I think it's stupid, but whatever. I wouldn't be saying I was approached to rig fights. This is a big investigation. You don't want your name anywhere in the file. It invites scrutiny. Who offered? How do you know them? How much? Have you gambled on sports? Basically, just shut the fuck up until we figure this out. Latino America. How are you going to confess that you were contacted to manipulate your fight and didn't report it? I understand that you might be receiving pressures and such, but at least make an anonymous report or something. They're dirtying the sport more and more sports. It takes away your desire to watch anything. That's ultimately, at the end of the day, the entire thing. I've had conversations in and around my circle, my family, my friends. That's why I don't watch NBA, MLB, NFL anymore. I used to be a huge sports fan, watched everything, hockey. I don't watch it anymore because the competitors, the athletes are making so much money. They don't care about the game. There's no loyalty. There's no real interest in any of this shit. It's hard for me to watch it because there's too much money being thrown around. None of them are invested in it. The fighters are the most genuine athletes on the planet. We were making fun of them for not being very smart, but it's part of the reason I can get invested in them. Because they fight for a living. They have to get in there and get beat up. They have to go through training camps. They have to get in really good shape. They have to make weight. Most of them live by that Bushido code, that mixed martial arts lifestyle. They live that way. They're decent people. Even people who have done bad shit in their previous life. They're just down to earth and cool. They are real people. They are real people. athletes that compete in any other sport just aren't real. They're not making, or they're just making too much money. If there's too much of a separation between real life and these other athletes. These MMA fighters are closer than we've ever seen. People used to support fights used to support these other sports because it was the dude who was bagging your groceries at the fucking Walmart who now went on to play in the NFL and's making hundreds of thousands of dollars, but not tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. How corrupt is the NFL, the MLB, the NBA if the UFC is getting, I don't know, infiltrated by these characters? How corrupt are these bigger entities? Because the NFL, NBA, all these outlets make 10, 20, 30, 100 times more money than the UFC does on a yearly basis. Look at the revenue. Why, if you're going to go after stuff in the UFC, how do we know they're not doing that in the NFL and anywhere bigger? That's where more of the money is. You know what I'm saying? Love MMA because the fighters are cool and talk to anybody. It's because the fighters don't get paid that much. That's why they're so down to earth and they talk to us. I think, and production, I think you'd probably agree with this. If you doubled everybody's pay in MMA and gave them a fair, livable wage, which again, the first contracts are like 10 and 10, so make it 20 and 20. That's $40,000 a year. That's roughly how much I make. I'm able to survive. Now I'm on my, I'm out doing my thing. That's enough money to survive. At least give people 20 and 20. I think that's probably fair. I think that's a lot of money for a fighter who's like a heavyweight who's just basically got up off the couch, but spread that across. Some people making 50 and 50 instead of 20 and 20. Some people making 100 and 100. If you have one fight, $200,000 or $100,000, that'll support you for a year. Fair enough. Don't live outside of your means. A lot of these fighters live beyond their means. Guys who get paid shit are buying designer clothes and big gold chains and shit. Cedric Dumas is committing crimes left, right, and center. You don't get paid enough to do that shit, man. You don't get paid enough to do that shit. You don't get paid enough to do all that mess. So we'll see how this plays out. Not sure we've got really anything else to discuss. Dumas living up to his last name. Oh, you know it. You know he had to do it. With a name like that, how could you not? Fighters are the only athletes that don't get paid well. I think they can make, I think if you paid them double what they're already earning, if you just doubled everybody's purse, I think would be all good. I think it would be mostly pretty clear and fine. They're just not on the level of the NFL, MLB, NBA, and I'm glad they're not. And again, they wouldn't be as hungry to fight and to finish fights and to try hard and make weight if they were making too much money. But you also watch how these fights play out and some of the stupid decisions these fighters make. People, fair enough, they question, should they even be making more money? Look at these heavyweights that can't even make weight, you know? It's just a mess. It's just a mess. I don't see any other breaking news right now. It looks like Christian Quinones is out of his fight with Adrian Yanez. But I think we'll leave it there. Productions, thank you, my friend, for jumping in here. Giving me something to talk about, so I'm not just talking to the fucking camera on my own. I mean, it's fun. I have fun. I'm not doing it for attention. Not doing it to get paid. Not doing it for any fame or acclaim, but we're just having fun. Ngannou, Paul, should I talk about that real quick? I don't really know what's going on, but Jake Paul, Francis Ngannou, we'll touch on it real quick. I got to jump on out of here. Francis Ngannou, Jake Paul going back and forth. Of course, the Jake Paul, Gervonta Tank Davis fight fell apart. There's questions surrounding that one. What's going on? Tank Davis, bit of a piece of shit. Beating up on women all the time. They called the fight off. Jake Paul seemed shocked by it, but come on. We're not shocked at all. Trying to get Francis Ngannou, trying to get others. I don't have a lot to say on it right now. But Francis Ngannou responds, choose your words wisely, boy. I agree that you need someone to discipline you for what you did to Mike Tyson. but stay in your lane. What do we think about this? Are they going to get a fight put together in the next week? I doubt it. It sounds like they're moving the event back to December. Very interesting stuff. Of course, I don't touch on boxing a lot, but Jake Paul and Francis Ngannou, a figure in MMA, a guy who's beat up on a lot of MMA fighters. Got to take a look at it. Can't let this shit slide anymore. Jake Paul, what do we think is going to happen? We're looking at Ryan Garcia. That one's probably not going to happen. Probably not going to be Francis. Junior Dos Santos, MMA fighter, he's calling him out. Only time will tell. I put it in the description, but I just don't know quite enough about it to really say anything. Jake Paul. Francis, just say you already got humiliated in boxing and scared to lose to Jake Paul. I accept that. I think Francis could go in there, take the easy paycheck, and knock Jake Paul the fuck out. I say, why not? But that'll do it for me. Thank you for Productions jumping in here, chopping it up, going back and forth a little bit. It's been a blast, been a good time. I've enjoyed it. Just a short little live stream, just a short one in between the breaks of the day. Got a little bit of time to spare. Anybody out there still watching? Hope you have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day. Anybody watching after the fact, like, share, comment, subscribe, do the whole thing. Let's get this thing going, get this thing flowing. Get some more people in here. Some back and forth, some difference of opinions. We always enjoy that, but that'll do it for me. You guys have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.